Om Sahanau Sahanau Bhanaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. ईशावास्यमिदं सर्वं यत्किञ्च जगत्यां जगत् तेन त्यक्तेन भुञ्जीथा मा गृधः कस्य स्विद्धनम् कुर्वन्नेवेह कर्माणि जिजे विशेषतगुं समाः एवं त्वयि नान्यते तोस्ते न कर्म लिप्यते नरे असुर्या नामते लोका अन्धेन तमसावृताः तांस्ते प्रेत्याभिगच्छन्ति एके च आत्महनो जनाः अनेजदेकं मनसो जवीयः नैनद्देवा आप्नुवन् पूर्वमर्षत् तद्धावतोऽन्यान् अन्येति तिष्ठत् तस्मिन्नपो मातरिश्वा दधाति तदेजति तन्नेजति तद्दूरे तद्वन्तिके ततु अन्तरस्य सर्वस्य ततु सर्वस्यास्य बाह्यतः यस्तु सर्वाणि भूतानि आत्मन्येवानुपश्यति सर्वभूतेषु च आत्मानं ततो न विजुगुप्सते यस्मिन् सर्वाणि भूतानि आत्मैवाभूद्विजानतः तत्र को मोहः कशोकः एकत्वमनुपश्यत. This is second verse, and this third, sixth and second verse, seventh verse, they are all very much alike. Both these things are alike. So I just thought I will take up both these things, try to explain about these two things. So in the yastu sarvani bhutani atmanyeva anupashyati sarvabhuteshu chatmanam tato na vijugupsate. In all the existence that is there, the Atman, the self, is the one which manifests both vijanataha, one who understands that, one who feels that sarva bhuteshu cha atmanam tato na vijugupsate. Not only that, he sees that Atman, sarva bhuteshu cha atmanam. He gets the Atma, say in the others. Now this, it's a very simple translation of that. But when you try to understand the idea behind it, connected with the earlier sutra, beginning of that, it is Purnamadaha, Purnamidam, we started from that. When we look at that, how do we understand that? There were so many interpretations and philosophy that they were trying to find out. Everything is coming from the same. They were going with the help of analogy. Like, for example, gold is the same, ornaments are different. So like that they were giving to show that there is something which is background is the same. And the outer manifestations are different. Like that it said, but sarva bhuteshu atmanam, that means to say it is not just only in the human being, but in everything that is what is in the form of creation. Now, how do we understand that? So today with the science development, it is much more easier to find out, because earlier there were differences that were there in these things in the earlier science. And the idea also is another thing is that all these things are from the Vedas. Veda is a source of all the knowledge that was there, whether it was about the material world outside or about the internal world outside, inside. It's one and the same thing. Our Vedas did not differ there. Only thing is, whenever it is there connected with the outside world, we call it as karma kanda. And whenever going to the self, it is called as jnana kanda. Jnana is about the self. So this is a very simple idea with which that we try to work out. And the purpose and the goal of the whole life is to see that how you can go back to your own source, Atma. What is this Atman that you find out? So one thing from that Purnamadaha Purnamidam, we see that whatever that is supposed to be the Atman is the same as the Brahman. Only thing is Brahman, when we go it from the universe point of view, when you go back to the source of universe is Brahman. But when you go to the individual, the source of individual is Atman. And that means it is the Atman which becomes everything. It comes out of this. So today in the material, what they have done is that, earlier about the world outside, that they had Panchabhutas and all these things that they said. This is what happened in the Eastern philosophy about the Panchabhutas, Prithvi, Apa, Tejo, Vayu, Akasha, etc., all those things. But then in the Western world, when you look at it, it is in the form of 108 elements that were there. And further, they go back to from the elements to electricity. Everything is nothing but electron, proton, neutron. It's nothing but electricity. So, like that, there is one common thing behind all these things from which everything develops, is the way that the science has looked into. But the science at that point of time, they were not very clear whether it is matter and space and the time. Are they three different things? But then slowly they are inching towards that idea that everything is the same. They're looking at that. But this is all about the material world outside that they looked into. And Indian philosophy also looked into the outside world in the form of Panchabhutas. Panchabhuta has, Prithvi, Apa, Tejo, Vayu, Akasha. We call them as elements because there is no better word in English that we call it. But the idea is the way that they are, it's not Prithvi is actually solid. And then when you come to the Apaha, that means a liquid. It's not just only water, but it is any liquid that is supposed to be. Based on its property, it is called as Apaha. Similarly, Tejas is supposed to be the fire, and then space, like that, it has gone to all these 5 different elements. Now, the idea is that when you look at this way, then solids have the least freedom. So shape, size, this, that, property, everything is fixed. Where the moment you go to the level of liquid, you see that liquid has a freedom of the shape. You can put it in any vessel, it takes that particular shape. So that means to say it has a two-dimensional, basically, freedom that it is there, introduced. But the moment that you go to the next quantum leap, that's what is the gas. Gas has three-dimensional freedom. That means to say it can change its pressure also, it can occupy. But all these things are actually the development and the degree of freedom. And from there, when you come to the Akasha, it's not confined, it can be moving, it has total freedom. So, Prithvi, Apa, Tejo, Vayu, Akasha, by the time it comes to Akasha, that means there's much more freedom. But then all this is within the consciousness. So, therefore, when you look at it, the consciousness is supposed to be the highest degree of freedom. And when we say highest degree of freedom, the freedom has an ability to give up its freedom. That's also a part of freedom. So therefore, we say that the consciousness itself gives up its freedom to become Prithvi, Tejo, Apaha, Vayu, Akasha. All these things happen from the same consciousness, and you are that consciousness. Brahman is the consciousness at the universal level, and Atman is the consciousness at the individual level, because you also have all these things that are there within you. There is a space, there is Akasha, and then there is all these things, elements that are there within you. Therefore, you are that consciousness, you are that freedom. Now, this is the most important aspect to say that identify yourself with that freedom or whatever that little freedom that you can have it. That's what is you. And the moment that freedom is taken away, and why that freedom is taken away? For the sake of transaction. So, in order to see that transaction takes place, the freedom is given up. So that, in fact, that's what the Upanishad also says. I always quote that. The consciousness gives up its freedom, the individual gives up its freedom to become the food and the hunger. So that interaction takes place between the hunger and the food. So therefore, it takes place like that. So therefore, that it is this consciousness which becomes everything. And you are that consciousness. Theoretically, it seemed to be okay. Theoretically, it seemed to be fine. But what is the practical application of it? Practical application is that the more and more that you identify with that freedom, with the consciousness, the more and more that you feel that not only that you are that consciousness, the world is also the consciousness. In fact, everybody around, everything around is also the same consciousness, whatever that you are. And the analogy that the Shastras uses, at the leaf level, they're separate. One leaf is separate from the different leaf and all that. But the moment you raise from the leaf consciousness to the branch consciousness, all the leaves belong to the same branch. From there, we go to the trunk. All the branches belong to the same trunk. There is no question of difference. And from there, you go to the roots. It's all one and the same thing. But what we see is that we don't see the roots. We only see the leaves that are there outside. For the transaction level that you need, you are at the leaf level. You are interacting with the leaf. So that becomes very important for us. So therefore, that interact at the leaf level, but don't get caught up with the identification with the leaf level. If you identify yourself with the leaf level, then you forget that you are the tree, you are the trunk, you are the roots, you are everything that is there, and that you become everything based on various needs that you become. It's a need-based development that we have taken place. Like the way when you look at a simple human being, first of all, the consciousness that is there enters into in the form of one particular cell, but that cell has the whole geometry that is there, every detail that is there. But as it grows, the cell multiplies. You can see that hands develop, legs develop, various organs develop. By the time the child comes out, so many things develop. But still that there are so many things that are dormant. As the child grows, then you can see that how the strength in the legs develops, strength in the hands develop, talking develops. So many things will develop in the child. So that means to say, it's not just only that one particular level of development, but the continuous development that goes on. And ultimately, that even the brain also goes, and then we go on giving information. It goes on developing. So this is how that whole thing is from one single unit, consciousness, everything is coming up as per the needs. So this is how individual development has taken place. This is an analogy. So this way that if you can really realize that you are that consciousness, the whole body is outside, and then what happens is that yastu sarvani bhutani atmanyeva anupashyati. You see yourself in the whole world. Sarva bhuteshu atmanam. You are the same Atman. That Atman that you say is whatever that you are is the same Atman that is there in everybody, everything. When you see that Sarva bhutesh atmanam, then what happens? Tatona vijugupsate. It's a very beautiful idea that he gives. And said that what you identify yourself with, and you see in the world outside, because you are that, the world is also outside, the same thing. If you identify yourself with that you are a youth, you look at the world also to be youth. You yourself look at yourself to be the child, then you look at the children in the world outside. So this identification is something which you look at the world outside. Identification. So the same identification, if I am myself to be the mind, then I look at everybody as mind. In fact, that Swami Vivekananda said, if a dog has to imagine God, Dog imagines God to be a big dog, a huge dog, a powerful dog, because that's what is imagination. That's how it goes on. But then, that we have heard this Panchakosha that is there. It's a very beautiful model of Panchakosha. Everything in this world has that Panchakosha. Everywhere that Panchakosha is there. But how much that Panchakosha manifested is something what it matters. Like, for example, intellect in our case, it manifested so very well. Whereas the intellect has not manifested like that in the case of a dog or a cat or something like that. But they have their own intellect developed, their own intelligence developed. Yesterday there was some argument. Somebody said that the other species do not have Vijnanamaya Kosha, only we have. I said, no, no. And the mosquitoes have Vijnanamaya Kosha. Particularly Prashanti mosquitoes have a lot of Vijnanamaya Kosha. Whether you understand the instructions of Shavasana or not, but then the mosquitoes will understand. The moment when you say, now totally relax, now you see everybody is lying down, nobody moves, mosquitoes will invade you. They know exactly understand when to invade you. So they have got their own intelligence. That intelligence is the Vijnanamaya Kosha. And then behind it, there is Anandamaya Kosha. That's all they feel the Ananda. So therefore, that all these Panchakoshas are there. But only thing in the case of human being, they are most evolved. That's a simple thing. But it's not just evolved, but very important thing is that can we use this evolved faculties within us? Then we are useful. Otherwise, we are not useful. And what is the way to evolve in this? He says that's what Shastra says about Viveka. If you have that Viveka, then you can really proceed in that direction. That's what says that Buddhiritesha Madhiko Visesha Buddhirvihena Pashubi Sama. You can also become like an animal, but you can also become like a saint. And that can be possible because of that Viveka that we have. So now what happens is that I can see the whole world as the Panchakosha. I can see that they also developed all those things. It's not just only intellectual, but it is an experiential. So when it is an experiential, when I see all these things, what happens is that the most important emotion that we feel or the bhavana that we feel is the hatred. So therefore, that the duality is established very strongly by this hatred. Hatred comes so easily. In fact, we say that love and hatred, they're together. And the simple meaning of love is that I would like to give my life if I can save somebody else's life. If I can enhance somebody else's life, I give myself to that. This is what is the simple equation of love. Hatred is that I want somebody else to be destroyed. That's what is hatred. Destroyed not totally, but even the part wise. If somebody becomes successful, I become jealousy because basically that he should not have been successful. I should have been successful. See, this is what is the thing. The hatred comes into the picture. It comes so easily, it comes so spontaneously with the world outside because this world we develop based on the intellect. It's the intellect which constantly says that this is better, this is less better, this success, this is not success. So this duality intellect brings about. So the moment that intellect brings about this duality, immediately this judgment comes into the picture, and judgment is always towards the negative. You never think of a judgment which is positive. Judgment is always about the negative. Yeah, it would have been much better and improved. So therefore, this is how the whole verbatim also changes into that is there something that we can improve? That's what is the idea of the hatred that comes into the picture, which is emotionally translated into, and look at the way that how much it influences us. Subtly, it is there within us, very easily that we become victims of that. So therefore, it says, if you see that everything is nothing but the same Atman or the same Atmasthiti, same consciousness is everywhere, then tato na vijigupsate. There is no question of vijigupsa. The hatred will not be there. He does not say that love will come up because basically love is naturally there. See, love is to start with Brahman itself is love. Love is not something that you need to develop. You already have it. Only thing is, hatred is something which develops because of the intellect in the world outside. Whereas love is always there. In fact, the love between the hunger and the food is the one which becomes a duality. And then they come together so that you get the joy out of it. The same way the two individuals, there's always love. So which is natural. Hatred comes because of the you draw the boundary. So when the moment that you see the boundary, you draw the boundary, then hatred comes into the picture. So the hatred is one of the most important indication of this ego. How many types of boundaries that we create? So much of hatred that we develop. So it may be wealth, it may be knowledge, it may be this, it may be that. So many things can be there. And the moment all these things drop off, that is what is consciousness. Consciousness is that where there are no boundaries. It's a totally freedom. See, the idea of giving up freedom is try to create a boundary. Boundary you create for the sake of only local purpose. The Brahman wanted to become many, it's a desire to become many. He created a boundary just to enjoy the whole thing, to enjoy the boundary that he created. I always used to get this idea that there are some friends who are there and happily they are together. So, okay, let's enjoy the time, evening. Let's play football. And they divide into two groups, your group and my group, and then one football, and then they try to work with that. See, now you see that you created a boundary. You say one person is my group and he's the opposite group. So therefore, I give the ball to my group fellow, not the other fellow. And if that fellow create, uh, hits a goal, we must hit a goal. So we should go behind it. So that all these things have developed because it's a just simple play to just to spend time that we created a play. But then we become so serious about the play. This is what we say that the play becomes serious, then the karma becomes a bondage. Kurvaneveha karmani jiji vishet shatam. Shatam samaha jiji vishet jivta vichet. There's a passion in doing it, playing, but there is no boundary in that. That is the way that we need to create that kind of a thing. So creating boundary only for the sake of just local wise, just to spend the time, say that you my party, and the moment that you finish the game and then go back to the green room, you're all the same. It's all one and the same thing. The same way that we have another thing that we play here, my child and your child and this thing. But then the moment that we come out of it, we should know that it's only for the sake of the activity that we create a boundary, but not in the reality. There is no boundary. So it's deep inside that we have no boundaries at all. That's what is the idea of Atmanyeva Anupashyati. It's like the way that mirror reflects anything in front of it. Mirror doesn't choose, I should reflect this, I should not reflect that. We should be like that with the world outside. When we have like that, there is no question of Vijigupsa. There is no question of hatred. There is no question of separateness. In fact, the more and more that we develop this hatred, the more and more we create boundaries, rigid boundaries. And that really bothers us. It's, I was in the project area, and from there I came back to Bangalore for all this ASA work and all that. And afterwards, I went back to project, and then when I went back to project, all our friends, mothers, they brought their little children, and these children, they wanted to show that they learned this shlokas and Gita and all that. So they all brought, these children came and then said, come on, you chant. So one child chanted Shuklam Bharadram Vishnu, another child chanted something else. And then one mother said to the child, come on, you chant. And this child was, I don't want to chant. I don't know. Hey, you know all those things. No, I said, I don't know. No, you know all those things. I don't want to chant. So created. Mother went into tears. He said, no, Raghuram, my son also knows all those things, but only today he's cranky. He doesn't know to say, why do you take this so seriously? So you create such boundary. And then now I know that the mother would have given a big lesson to her son that you should not behave like that. The childish child is very simple, natural. So this is how you become very small little simple things. Vijugupsa comes into the picture. That means to say your uneasiness, your hatred, your not accepting, and it stays for such a long time in our mind. Forever it will be there. Not come out of it. Tatona vijugupsate. In such a case, only when it is possible, or when you don't do that, then only that yasmin sarvani bhutani atmanyevanu pashyati. I am saying it the other. In success or failure, that's what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. Take it easy. Don't worry about all this. Yeah, it does not mean that your activity is slackened. No, passionately you do the activity, passionately you fight, passionately you do all those things, but at the same time, let there not be any vijigupsa. Because the activity gives the joy because passionately you are involved in that. Now, what happens is slowly we shift from activity to the result. And the moment that we shift to the result, now result has a boundary. Activity doesn't have a boundary, result has a boundary. We create that boundary on that. So therefore, yasmin sarvani bhutani atmanyevanu pashyati. And that's where basically the idea of tatavana vijugupsate. Vijugupsa does not take place. And it is something that uh, very easily one can recognize. It's not, this is where the sadhana comes into the picture. Just look back into the life. How many times that we have caught up into this idea of hatred, caught up into the idea of jealousy. Hatred, jealousy, all these things are born out of the same thing. And this is because of the boundary that we create. And the boundary that we created for the sake of purpose of interacting, not because of anything else, but we created for the purpose of interacting. But that boundary becomes so rigid, therefore that we get caught up in that. So yes to sarvani bhutani atmanyevanu pashyati sarva bhuteshu chatmanam tato navijugupsate. In fact, in Bhagavad Gita also, mayyeva manatat mayyeva sakalam jatam mayi sarvam pratishtitam mayi sarvani layam jati tad bahya bahyatam. That means to say, even me alone, Bhagavad Krishna says that I am alone there in everything. And one who realizes that it is me, that who is everything, then there is a question of hatred, there is a question of something different. Yasmin sarvani bhutani atmanyeva bhut vijanatah tatra ko mohaha kashokaha ekatvam anupashyava. This is the second sutra, seventh sutra in the series that we have. Yasmin sarvani bhutani atmanyeva bhut vijanatah. This vijanata is very important. See, one thing is the knowing. There are different levels of knowing that is there. Knowing from the point of view of the just knowledge. Knowledge is something which just comes like that. You don't have to do anything. Knowledge is always there. Comes. You read a book that you get the knowledge. You go to a place, you get the knowledge. You are ready to absorb this knowledge that is there. But then what happens? Vijanataha is not just only the knowledge that we have it, but it has become our experience. It has sunk into us as our personality. So, in the first place, whatever that is there is more of knowledge, but here it is something which is becoming your being. Like, for example, you read the whole books on swimming, but if you're not entered into the water, where is the question of that knowledge of swimming? And it is basically based on the practice. It's become like anubhava. In fact, in Mahabharata, I always quote that example that when Drona was talking about, all these Pandavas and Kauravas together, he was talking about the Satya, truth. Dharmaraja Yudhishthira, he hears that, the whole thing. Then, okay, let's go to the next topic. Then Yudhishthira insisted, no, no, please tell more about Satya, more about Satya. Many times he asked, almost like it's irritation to everybody. Such a simple thing. I don't know, this man seemed to be very intelligent, but why is he not understanding this small little simple thing? Everybody was thinking like that. Even Drona felt like that. But he actually had to, manifest it, realize that. So therefore, this is the difference between the realizing and knowing. That realization has to occur within him. And result of it, you can see that in Mahabharata war, when in the battlefield, that Ashwatthama, then Yudhishthira, the Drona asked, did Yudhishthira say that? He said, I heard Yudhishthira saying that. Immediately he collapses. So that means to say, when Yudhishthira says it is not anymore truth as a word, but it's something out of an experience. So that's what is the level it has gone in the case of Yudhishthira. So therefore, Vijanita is this is what his idea. It became an experience. It's no more a knowledge, but it is an experience. Experience is so much more than all other knowledge that is there. Experience is something which is important. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa's story also that you see, a very beautiful story that a Sethji, lot of money and all that, he was a wealthy man, crossing the boat, and the oarsman, that the fellow who was driving the boat, he was actually rowing the boat, and then he asked that, how much did you learn? He said, I didn't learn anything. I'm unschooled, I'm uneducated. What is this? You did not educate? No, I did not educate. Sir, half of your life is wasted. I said, Babuji, what can I do with the education? Because anyway, right from the beginning, I've been rowing this boat, and that's all that I'm doing it, helping people to cross the boat, the shore. That's what is happening. No, but at least you must know mathematics. You must know counting. Then why? I said, because you charge people, people give money. So that at least you should know counting. He said, I don't even know counting also. I don't know much of counting. Because whatever that they give, that's good enough for me to survive for that day. I go by day. I don't have anything else. I don't even have any balance or anything like that. So why do I have to have it? So this is good enough. So you don't even know counting? He says, no, I don't even know counting. And another quarter of your life is wasted. So 3/4 of your life is wasted. And then meanwhile that there is a big storm, and then the boatman asked the businessman, do you know swimming? He said, I don't know swimming. I said, I know swimming, and then the boat is going to drown. So your whole life is wasted, and then I can cross the swim. So what you require is only that which can take you across. And what is that? And the spiritual knowledge that going across is the idea of that your knowledge can take you towards the goal of life. That's what is you are the consciousness. So that is basically the idea. This is knowledge about. And that's what is the sutra gives us the idea that yasmin sarvani bhutani atmanyeva bhudvijanataha. So he realizes it's not just only the knowledge, but he realizes that sarvani bhutani atmanyeva. You are the only same Atman, same Atma Swarupa that's there within that. Now, what is that same Atma Swarupa that's there within everything? As I said, unless until you go from the leaf consciousness to the tree consciousness, you will not have that idea of what is called as Atmaneva Bodhijanata. So, the whole of yoga meditation is to see that how I can go back to that source of myself, in the sense that whatever that is boundary, I just leave it behind. I said it's only temporary, it's only for the purpose of transaction, but beyond that, it is not there. So it is the reality is that what is there behind it, that's what is the reality. But whatever that's there outside is just only for the sake of uh, once you have this, then you use the boundaries, you use the limitation that you have, but at the same time, you are not caught up in that. And not only you, but the others, you see the same thing. Whatever you perceive in the same thing the world outside. Then what happens is that tatra ko mohaha ka shokaha. Moha and shoka will not be there. Now, this is a very interesting factor. You are there and you have the things that are there, everything is there, but things are there, but there is no question of sammohana. That means to say moha comes from the sammoha, which means you are hypnotized by the object outside. You are misguided by the object outside, misled by the object outside. It is like this, that you see the rainbow. You know the knowledge that rainbow is not a reality. But you still see that, you enjoy the whole thing. But there is nothing that misguides you in that rainbow. It's still there. Enjoy that. And your knowledge of science will not take away I seeing the rainbow. The same way mirage. You see the mirage, you know that it is mirage, that knowledge will not take away the seeing of the mirage. Not only these things, even the dream. You know that it's a dream, and the dream is not something which is not reality. You don't get caught up in the dreams. Of course, some people get caught up in the dreams also. So this is how essentially that don't get caught up in these things. You know the reality, don't get caught up in that. This is the idea that there is no question of moha. That means moha is that the sammoha, or you're hypnotized into it, you are misguided into it, you are brainwashed into it. That should not happen. It's so easy in this world. So many that are there can really misguide you, direct you into that way. Any small little simple thing can immediately give that. So therefore, and particularly with the present kind of trend, there are so many things which can really attract you towards that. Moha can develop. You can develop the moha. Now, what happens is that when we think of moha, uh, we try to give up the object. See, object giving us the moha. Actually, what happens is that by denying the object, by denying this thing, the object is becoming more and more important, not less important. Like the way that the uh, the love for the object, we mistake it to be the attachment to the object, we mistake it to the love for the object. Attachment is actually moha. Love is something which is natural. As in the earlier sutra, I says that love is natural. The moment that Vijugupsa goes, the love is there natural. And that's what you can see in the case of child. No intellect, no nothing is developed, but the child has love. Look at your face, 3, 4 days, child looks at your face, smiles. Why the child has to smile? To smile is natural nature of that love itself, manifestation. Similarly, you see, in the case of an animal, a dog or a pet dog or a pet cat, how much they love you. They don't have any intellect, but then they have that love. So in this creation, essential thing is what is called as love. But that's why somebody even said that even the gravitation law is nothing but love. It's a love of matter, love of earth towards the matter, because matter is nothing but earth. So therefore, the earth loves that. In fact, there's on YouTube recently I had seen that one duck, gave shelter to a small little puppy. Did not have any mother died, so that shivering and all that. The duck gave the warmth by spreading its wings and all that. So, and they became good friends. And now later on, what happened is that this duck gave rise to some ducklings, and these ducklings and the puppy become the good friends. And the ducklings always stay with that puppy. And the mother duck was coming and complaining to the puppy that, what is this? You have spoiled my kids. You have taken away all my kids and all that. He's shouting at that. Beautiful it is. Showing that, they are my dog, my ducklings, my babies. You cannot carry with them. Such a lovely thing that is there. See, this possession, moha, comes into the picture. Love is something different from moha. We have to be very careful to see that whether it is moha or it is just a love that is there. What happens is when you love somebody, love is a degree of freedom that we give, whereas moha is something which is a bondage. You try to impose yourself on somebody else. That's what is moha. You would like to actually bind yourself, bind object by yourself. That's what is moha. So the moment that you see that everything is nothing but the same Atmasthi Swarupa, Tatra ko mohaha, because you realize from deep inside, Vijanataha, Bhut Vijanataha, that means you realize from deep inside, and such a person, there is no way that he has moha for that object. He likes it. But how beautiful that there is a story that was there about, the two ladies were claiming the child is mine and like this. Then they go to the king, and there's no way that who could give the decision whose child it is. They asked the minister, intelligent fellow. They said, "What is the solution?" The solution is very simple. Both of them they claim the child. Okay, divide the child into two halves and then give it to both of them. Immediately the mother says, "No, no, let the child be there with her only." Then it says that she is the real mother. Mother cannot destroy the child, cannot accept the destruction of the child. Let it be safe anywhere. That's the idea. So moha is something which imposes on something else, whereas that is boundary, my child boundary. Whereas love for the child is something which is different. And shoka, moha gives rise to shoka. Shoka is born out of moha. Now the shoka is another very interesting aspect of it. Dukkha is different from shoka. We also have tried to see in English what do we say about that. See, we may have sorrow, but we don't have suffering. Suffering is our choice. See, situation brings about sorrow, sadness. Yeah, if something happens, yes, you feel sad. Some death information comes about, if you feel sad about it, that's fine. Sadness is there, but the suffering is not there along with that. If you can separate these two things out, that's what is sadness comes because of the uh, suffering comes because of the moha, whereas sadness is based on the object outside. Sadness is situation created, and suffering is individual created. I may suffer, I may not suffer. It's up to me. The degree of freedom is there within me. Yes, I felt sad, but I don't feel the suffering of it. In fact, see, there was one lady. She used to come to me for counseling because she had a child, and the child would get up in the middle of the night and cry, and every child cries that the mother used to feel so panic because dad will get upset and then she has to take care of it. So all the 9 yards, it used to go on like that. And then later on, it developed into psychosis, kind of psychiatric kind of thing, where she always started hearing the child cry. And every moment she feels that child crying, and then she becomes panic, and then she becomes like that. And then she was taken to the mental hospital. She was given a shock and all those things. And then finally she came to me because she was into depression. And then they continued to give her, psychiatric medication and the shocks. Then I started counseling her and all that. And she slowly recovered, became normal. Everything became all right. Small little cry of a child used to really make her panic. Whereas now, after several years, the child has grown 7, 8 year old and a 7 year old child. And one day it so happened that some accident, freak accident, the child died. And then I was in US and I got a message. The first question that I had, what happened to the mother? So mother came and said that child died, but then she wanted to speak with you. So I came back from USA, and then she said, see, I'm saddened because my son died. Only son, and that also it was such a lovely son, and he died. So it really filled me with sadness. But the suffering I used to have earlier, even that child cries. Now that suffering is not there. I'm free from that. I feel sad. See, that's the big difference between the sadness and the suffering. Sadness is what is the situation created from outside. And suffering is from within us. It's a choice is ours whether to suffer or not to suffer. That's what I had we say about the story of uh, um, Socrates also. That he was giving the message, and then they said you should be given poison. Not only that, he should suffer the dying. Just simply you cut off his head or give him some poison immediately, instantaneously he dies. He will not suffer the dying. Therefore, the court said that he should suffer the dying. Therefore, he is given a poison called as hemlock, and they serve him, and then he takes that poison, and he's telling his students, his disciples who are there with him, said, "Look, that my hands are becoming blue, benumbed, my legs are becoming numb." So he's reporting that. The students asked him that, Socrates, you are dying. Are you not suffering? Socrates said that I must die because the poison has to work on me. But to suffer or not to suffer is my freedom. So this freedom, no court can say that you should suffer. Nobody else outside from can say that you should suffer. The suffering is brought about by us, not by anybody else. That's why in Bhagavad Gita, and Krishna says that you only create suffering for yourself. Uddhared atmanatmanam, natmanam avasadayet. You don't bring yourself down. Atmaiva hi atmane bandhu, atmaiva ripuhu atmana. The same story, similar story is there in the case of Jesus also, where when he was taken on the cross, at that time, he was complaining, why me? Because I've not done anything wrong to the people. I always did something good. But then I being punished, so that he said, why me suffering? Actually, there is another thing that happened. There is another criminal who did all kinds of criminal activities during that time. And he was also given the same kind of a punishment as on cross, death on cross, as Jesus Christ. So both of them were carrying their cross and on top of the hill. And at that time, that criminal who was there, and then it was also raining, that criminal who was going along with Jesus Christ looked at him and he smiled. Jesus didn't understand why that fellow smiled. He asked him, what made you to smile? Then he replied, I know that you have been such a wonderful, pious person all through your life, all these years of your life. And I have been absolute criminal all these years of life. And I deserve this particular punishment. There's no escape from that. But unknowingly, I might have done something which is good in my life sometime, something good. Therefore, I get this punishment along with you. You're such a great pious man that you are there. I get punishment along with you. See what a wonderful statement it is. So therefore, that even at that time you can see something which is positive. Jesus said, why me? But then later on, when he was taken onto the cross on the top, he said, forgive them, Lord, they don't know what they are doing. He said that that is the transformation in the case of Jesus Christ. Before that, he had a complaint. But after that, he has no complaints. Before that, he was son of Mary. After that, he is son of God. Son of Mary is the boundary. Son of God is no boundary. You're all the same. A criminal is the same as the saint. Everything is the same. So therefore, there is no question of tatra ko mohaha kashokaha. Shoka is not there. Yes, death is there. The body has to die. But at the same time, to suffer or not to suffer is my freedom. How many times that we hear that such great event happened in the case of great saints like Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. When he was having throat cancer, it became so acute that he could not even take morsel of food. Sharda Devi was crying. saying that, what happened to you? You know, you like that, you suffer. Ramakrishna said, where is the suffering? He said, at least, why don't you pray to the God, Divine Mother? At least you can take the food. And Ramakrishna, he replied to Divine Mother with a smile. He said that Divine Mother tells me back that when you are eating your food with so many other mouths, why are you worried about this one mouth? Leave it alone. Sharada Devi didn't know what to do. She's crying. But then she said, Gurudev, you are so extraordinary. I'm so glad that I'm with you. That was a simple word that she said. That stayed with her forever. That's the kind of thing. Suffering or not. Ramakrishna showed that there is no suffering in that. There's pain, but then the body has that. But to feel the suffering or not, it's his freedom. Same thing happened in the case of Ramana Maharshi again, that we have the same kind of an example. Ramana Maharshi had that cancer of shoulder injury and all that, and one day doctor said, we can't do anything. He smiled. He said, I knew that before itself. Only you wanted to try something, so you experimented on that. Now you also know that ultimately this has to go, let it go. He's just 50 years, and then he had that kind of a wisdom that is there. So can we become like this so that no moha, no shoka? Shoka comes because of moha. Shoka nivrutti is something which is very important. We want actually the situation should change. Don't ask for the situation to change. Situations are whatever that is there. That's why it is said that God gives us neither, you know, good or bad, right and wrong. God gives us only situation. How we take it is up to us, whether it is right or wrong. So tatra ko mohaha kashoka ekatvam anupashyata. This is what is ekatvam. That means to say, suffering or no suffering is one and the same thing. Joy and sorrow is one and the same thing. Therefore, living and non-living is one and the same thing. When both these things merge, that's when the realization comes into the picture. That's what is the idea he comes to. Look at the way how beautifully Upanishad takes us from the level of do the activity and be an observer for the activity, don't get involved, to a level where he takes us to this idea, where that you realize yourself within, that somebody that you are the witness and you are not the doer. That's the idea that he brings about. So we'll stop it here. We'll continue the discussion next week from the next shloka onwards. Thank you. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.